Hey everyone! Alright, I'm back. Garrett's back. We're going to go ahead and look at his stats. We'll look at his skills. I'll give my thoughts on the build that we have just seen me beat the game with. And if you are interested in playing this type of character as well, maybe some improvements that you could do to make it a little easier for you to play through the game with your Garrett. Finally, or not so finally, I'll give my thoughts on Underrail as a whole, now that the whole thing is done. And I feel like I can finally give it a score, because I don't like reviewing or giving a score to a game until I have finished it entirely. Lastly, I'll give a shout out to two other YouTubers that I know are playing through this game, or at least one of them I know is actively playing through the game at the moment, and the other one who's at least done 2 streams on the game. So, first things first, let's go over Garrett, shall we? When it comes to making a character in a CRPG, I really enjoy trying to make a character based on another game, an anime, a cartoon, a movie, some sort of other character, so I have a theme. Generally in this game, I know there's someone who's made, I think, what was his name? I can't remember the gentleman's name now, but there was someone who's made a series of videos on different character builds. He has like the sniper, or like the psionic guy and stuff like that. But I wanted not to use an existing build. I wanted to use a build that would be considered an insane build for Underrail, because it's a difficult game. A build that the internet would probably tell you to stay away from, and one that would be based on a existing character in a different franchise. And so, we made Garrett. Garrett was not very strong in the Thief series. He wasn't some muscular guy. He was, I got the impression, thin. But he wasn't a complete pushover. He could use a sword if he needed to, and he'd be able to hold his own against a guard. Now, in retrospect, this game did not have swords when I first created Garrett, and I had no idea they were going to be an option even for this game. But I lowered his strength to 4 and figured daggers would be good enough for him. The choice back then was daggers, fist weapons, or sledgehammers. Spears didn't exist either. So, his strength was lowered to 4, and those other points distributed into other skills instead. He was very dexterous in the Thief series, and since dexterity plays a part in lockpicking and pickpocketing, and because the game chooses between the highest of these 2 skills for determining your accuracy with melee weapons, I figured dexterity would come in very handy. It also would allow us to throw grenades, if I desired to go down that route as well. He ended up, as you can see, with a dex of 12. Not maxed out. Maximum, I think, would be close to 16 or 17 in this game. But I felt 12 would be... well, actually 10 was what I was going for originally, until the Expedition came out. Dexterity 10 would be fantastic for him. He wouldn't have too much trouble hitting anything with his daggers at that point. And his grenades would be fairly accurate. He was a very agile thief as well. Very fast if it came down to it for running away from enemies. He could avoid most traps, assuming he could see them. He could jump over some pretty crazy jumps as well, and so I wanted him to have a good agility. This also would play nicely into his ability to use stealth, and thus agility it was. Constitution 4. On the higher difficulty levels, Garrett did not have very much life, and so I figured a Constitution of 4 would be accurate for him. I, myself, do not like playing a character who has any minimum stats. Especially in this game, a Constitution of 3 would have saw Garrett fall significantly more often had I lowered it to the minimum in order to get one more stat someplace else. I felt the Constitution of 4 would let us... we'd still die fairly easily to a prolonged and sustained focused attack, which is most of the combats in this game, unless we were able to use our great agility to keep out of line of sight, and or dodge enemy attacks that would finally manage to get a bead on us. I think that, again, though, that Constitution 4 let us survive many encounters where Constitution 3 would have seen us fall flat on our back. So I think this was a rather nice score to have. Perception of 8, because, well, we're using bows. Garrett used bows in the Thief series, and I didn't want him to be penalized very much by keeping this around 6 instead. I felt an 8 would let us detect traps a bit easier, would get us access to some of the earlier secrets. I think we started with a perception of 7 when we made Garrett originally. And leaving it out as 8, as opposed to our dex of 10, we could focus more on the skill aspect of crossbows and leave our melee off at an earlier point. That is to say that we could stop putting points in melee and then focus on crossbows to make up for the fact that we would be leaving our perception a bit lower. A will of 4, we could have lowered this to 3, and honestly, I probably should have done that. We did not actually resist very many of the incapacitation or stun effects or similar effects when they went into Garrett. This was especially true after Expedition, when we did the health center, and we lost 30% of our resolve. We weren't going to be able to resist anything at that point. And we didn't take any social skills either with Garrett. So a 4 of will helped us maybe early on resist 1 or 2 effects. But otherwise, if you're going to make your own Garrett, I could recommend lowering your will to 3. I don't think you would see that much of a difference, and you could probably benefit from that extra point. Even putting it into maybe perception for better accuracy with your crossbow, finding finding secrets a little bit better, like finding more of them, or even dex to 13 or agility to 10 if you wanted. Intelligence of 7, I think we started with a 5 here, and at level 16 I leveled it to 6. And at level 24, I leveled it to 7. I think that's what we did. It might have been at level 12, we leveled it to 6, and 16 to 7. Garrett wasn't the... Oh, and when it comes to will, Garrett, I don't remember him actually resisting any type of spells in the game. In fact, spells would generally just slaughter him if they actually managed to land. Like a fireball, he's dead if a fireball hits him. So I think a 4 will was thematic. A 3 will, probably also just as thematic for him. Intelligence of 7, Garrett was pretty smart. He was able to figure out some of the puzzles in the game and understand what the interpreter Katika was talking about, despite the fact that the other thieves did not and were more learned in that area of the Keepers, the guild that Garrett begrudgingly joined later on. I knew I wanted to do crafting with Garrett as well, and so Intelligence 7 I thought would be perfect for him. Overall, with the stats for the character, I was really happy. I think if you were to make your own Garrett, again, you could definitely lower will to 3, stick that point someplace else. You might also be able to lower your strength to 3. There's no real difference between 3 or 4 strength. None of the armors that we wore required a 4 strength. The only thing you'd be penalized with would be 10 pounds less of carry weight. My build did not have Pack Rat Hound in it, so I didn't intend to take it. So that 10 pounds, I really wanted those extra 10 stone to carry, which is why I wanted that 4 strength. If I was to remake Garrett from scratch, he'd be tricky, because I would want him to use a sword now, since swords are a thing. And Garrett actually used a sword in Thief, not a dagger. Although he did switch to a dagger in Thief 3. But originally he did not. That said, if I did have a sword rather than a dagger, we wouldn't have access to Cutthroat as a feat. We wouldn't have had access to, well, although we did not use I think, Crippling Strike either. Yeah, you know what? Maybe it's for the best that we didn't have any access to swords early on. Would have made the build quite a bit more difficult to use, I think. For skills, As you can see here, Garrett ended up with a decent effective skill level in melee and crossbows. I thought this was really nice, especially with the specialized bolts we ended up using with... Where was it? Oh, well, we'll cover the feats a little later. But I think this was good. We almost always had a 95% chance to strike as someone with our melee attack, assuming that they weren't something very super specialized, like a lurker assassin. For our crossbows, we did struggle a little bit with this. It felt to me like the average hit chance with our crossbow was 85 or 87%. Definitely could have benefited from another point in perception to bring that up to 95. We also used a crossbow that had plus 10% precision to make up for the fact that our crossbow skill was, in fact, a little lower thanks to our precision of 8. But overall, we didn't struggle too much, right? We had cursed RNG. Everyone who plays Underrail is going to have cursed RNG. And I think overall, I was very happy with the points in crossbows and melee for this character. I think it ended at a really good spot. A throwing of effective skill of 120 was also very nice. We certainly missed a great amount of those 90% chances to land the grenade where we wanted to. So I don't think any additional throwing would have helped significantly in that regard. We just would have been able to throw the grenades a little more accurately, a little further from us. But I was rather content with the distance that we were throwing grenades with Garrett at. Thematically, Garrett used a bow in Thief. He used a blackjack, swords in Thief 1 and 2, and a dagger in Thief 3. And as for throwing, he did use flash bombs. And he had the scouting orbs in Thief 2. So, throwing I thought was in theme for Garrett. For defenses, I think these came out rather well. Many people on the internet will suggest that you level both dodge and evasion to max. However, I knew that with an agility of 8, that we could leave dodge much lower and rely on the uncanny dodge feat to make up the difference in the lack of points here. I didn't really care very much that we had a lower dodge by about 55 points, because our uncanny dodge would guarantee the enemy would miss us. We could also make up a decent amount if we actually created armor. Early on, though, that wasn't the intention, right? My intention was to just take electronics and chemistry in order to make specialized bolts. But the expedition let us dabble, or not dabble, but actually put a decent amount of points into tailoring to make our own armor. But these were nice. I think that I probably should have kept leveling evasion past 130. It would have been handy, because we still got hit fairly often, but maybe it wouldn't have mattered. I know that the later enemies you encounter have a much higher, or maybe not much higher, it's the wrong thing I'm saying. They have a good amount put into their offensive skills. So it might not have made too much more difference if I was to max this about 150 or 160. For subterfuge, and for defenses, Garrett could dodge by strafing enemies. He could dodge bows by that same aspect. Like an enemy would shoot a bow, if you move left or right, you might be able to dodge that arrow. It'd be very tricky to do so, but you could do it. So I thought this was more thematic than relying on armor. If I had access to swords, I could have taken parry, and that would have been very thematic as well. But again, I don't think there's anything wrong with our dagger. Over here for subterfuge, I think this worked out really well. Stealth, 231. We totally stealth past a great amount of enemies, combined with the interloper feat, which we'll get to in a bit. I thought this was amazing. We avoided many of the hives of locusts. We got to avoid various strongmen. We avoided enemies early on, like lurkers or what have you, ironheads. It allowed us to get closer to the enemy to set up traps. I thought this was really nice, and of course, it's very thematic for Garrett to have that. Garrett did lockpick. He did pick other people's pockets, so I wanted these as well. We saw that lockpicking was very handy, gives us access to extra loot early on, and the possibility of picking up an oddity item here or there, which is very nice as well. Pickpocketing. We're not going to cover oddity mode versus classic in this. You already have heard hints that I dislike oddity mode. The internet will tell you that you want hacking and lockpicking for a character who does oddity. I will tell you you want pickpocketing more than these two. There is a good amount of oddity points that you can only acquire if you have pickpocketing. You get 9 points total on the Ogliarch members in Core City. You'd have to somehow find and kill one of them outside of where anyone else can see you to get that oddity item otherwise. It gives you access to 4 points of oddity items in Junkyard. It gives you access to 2 points with Aegis Incorporated. 3 more points if you pickpocket the faceless leader. It also allows you to complete the quests for Jack Quicksilver with the murder, because you can pickpocket an item that is a dead giveaway as to who the murderer was. Finally, this let us get the incredible Aegis Incorporated jet ski. That was an amazing reward for just finding that radio. That was amazing. I really, really liked pickpocketing. We also never lacked for drugs, for the adrenaline glands or morphine, so that was very nice too. Hacking did not seem to make sense to me, which is why I did not take it. A bit weird to take one of these and not the other, but as we saw, we won. It wasn't that bad. I did miss this greatly at the Tithania slab, though. As for traps, this was also thematic. Garrett used mines, he used gas mines, explosive mines, so I thought traps would fit well for Garrett as well, and we made good use of these, especially early on in the game. Later, we weren't able to use them as effectively, and of course there's situations where we weren't able to use these at all, like in the arena or what have you. Still, 126, not many enemies were able to detect our traps, so it worked out well for us, I think 65 points. This also helped us detect traps, combined with our perception of 8. I don't think there was, I think we might have missed like 3 traps, might have walked into 3 of them, but that's we set off without even knowing they were there. But otherwise, all the other traps we found, and we were able to claim, I think, most of the traps in the game with a 126 skill. For technology, mechanics and tailoring really, well, we'll get to tailoring a little bit later. Mechanics really helped us by being able to create all those repair kits. I don't know how I feel about the recent change to repair kits that Stygian Software did. I thought I would like it, but now I'm not so sure. It might have been acceptable to have a... It's up to the developer, Tim. It's always acceptable to the developer. You're saying the wrong words. Don't say something like that. I apologize. I think... Well, this is a topic for a different day. I think the mechanics 100, especially when we played the game, was amazing. Being able to create so many repair kits for like 50 total scrap, that was awesome. It kept all of our equipment in decent shape. It also would have given us the option to sell those kits when we wanted to. But remember, we didn't start mechanics until roughly level like 15 or 14, I think, is when we started putting points into mechanics. We had no technology until we were well past Depot A. But this allowed us to go ahead and begin repairing our stuff when we did it. It gave us access to our incredible crossbow, our amazing daggers as well. Electronics and Chemistry ended at 60 at level 25, which was enough, combined with the bonuses we received in our house, to allow us to make MK3 Shock and MK3 Firebolts. It also allowed us to make MK2 EMP grenades and MK4 frag and HE grenades. And those were amazing. We made good use of them. Yeah, I really thought that 60 points in both of these to make those bolts, incredible. We had just enough points to make the MK3s. Later on, we obviously leveled the electronics up to max, And we were able to make some better shields, make some amazing goggles for us as well, and make that great taser. So I think this worked out really well for us in the end. And at Tailing 100, again, this lets us make the most incredible armor that we are wearing. It is amazing. The same thing with our boots. Amazing pair of boots. Holy crap. So much dodge and evasion added. So many movement points added to us as well. Good resistances. Fantastic for Garrett. For you, for your Garrett, I'm not quite sure what I would recommend. You could probably get away with lowering dodge a little more as well. Maybe to just the amount you would need for uncanny dodge. Though you'd be wanting to rely on that significantly more, of course. Less dodge means you can be hit more often. Still, I think lowering this by like 30 points, I don't think in the end it would make that much difference. It would be tougher early on though. Obviously you wouldn't be able to craft the best armor in the game until you're roughly level 20 or so. And you'd also have to have access to the greater siphoner leather. And you'd have to have access to super steel for the fibers, and have enough points in mechanics and tailoring to fully take advantage of that, to make up for the fact that you're leaving dodge rather low. But you could probably do it. And you put those points elsewhere. You could probably drop some points of stealth if you really wanted to. But I always liked Garrett as Master Thief, stealthing in the shadows. But yeah, we could probably have lowered this by about 15 points and put those points someplace else. Maybe into biology. I think it's 40 points to use jumping, to be able to create jumping bean. And that could have been really useful. The only skill I think I missed was mercantile. I would have loved access to mercantile to make more money off of selling things, buy things for even cheaper, and have access to the special shops and merchants. But in the end, as you saw, we did not need them whatsoever. We had enough that we could just get through the whole game without any problems. Well, some farming, but I did most of that off screen, and it wasn't that bad anyway. Yeah, so I think the skills are pretty good. I don't know what else I would recommend for you guys if you wanted to make a slightly different Garrett. Now, for feats. Body Horror was one we got in Expedition. I think I like it, because this increases the critical chance of all of our weapons by 3% against humans and non-insectoid critters. Mostly for the humans, 3%. Burglar. This was a quality of life upgrade. I can tell you, I really miss this feat on any of my characters who take lockpicking or hacking. But it's hard to justify taking this in retrospect. We didn't need it. It did let us gain access to some areas when there were guards patrolling around a bit faster. I really wish this skill also affected your use of the Omni tool on grates. I think it should. Alas, it does not. The plus 10 bonus to stealth skill in controlled areas is basically useless. You're taking this for the pick and hack locks bonus only, in my opinion. But it was a very nice quality of life feat. This was also very nice. I don't think we needed this in retrospect, since we're playing a stealth character. We probably could have gone through all of the deep caverns without it and not had too much more trouble. That said, glad to have had it. Let us stick it out and explore more of the area. This, however, is a feat you pick up in the game, not one you take by leveling, so that's my thoughts on that. Because we're using a dagger, we get a great many melee attacks, more than we would get with a sword, especially because dexterity, high dex, that lowers the action point cost of using a dagger. Normally our dagger, how much was a dagger normally? 12 AP. But I'm pretty sure if I was to attack something, which I can't do here, but I think it's less than that if I actually want to attack, I would need a target. Can I go upstairs and fight my own bot? Let's wait until this stuff cool down. We can see what difference a 12 dexterity gave Garrett. So if I want to attack that... Oh, only 8 action points. Nice. So 4 less. Wow, that actually is... That's almost half. That is actually a significant upgrade. Wow. That's amazing. But that wouldn't affect our swords, right? Swords would remain at 14 or 16, depending upon the metal that I used. So anyway, with that many attacks, expertise really helps with daggers. Furthermore, this also helps with our crossbow. We don't benefit from it as much because you're only firing or Garrett at least was firing 2 crossbow bolts per round, as opposed to attacking with melee like 5 or 6 times. But still, it helped both, which is one of the reasons why I picked expertise. We could just skip Fisherman and Hunter. And Naval Combat. Nimble. I've always, if I'm playing a stealthy character, or someone who has dodge and evasion, I am almost always picking Nimble. I'm almost always picking Nimble on any character anyway, because getting that armor penalty down 15% means you retain an extra 15% of your movement points. That's important even for heavy armor-wielding tanks who are using metal armor. I thought this was a great feat. It's also one of the reasons why I took it so early. The extra dodge and evasion helped us out against those initial rat hounds. Paranoia, with a 8 perception and 65 traps, we might not have needed this in order to increase like our traps detecting skill, but this did help us detect a few crawlers and death stalkers early on. The reduction in getting crit and that increased initiative, especially that initiative, was one of the main reasons why I picked it, and I think it helped us out greatly. Generally, though, we're playing a stealth character, so we almost always want to initiate combat ourselves, but there's a few times when we weren't able to use stealth. For example, the arena, in which case that 5 extra initiative, plus all that extra bonuses for Paranoia, makes it a really nice feat to take. Quick Pockets. I'm actually surprised in retrospect how useful this was. Gaining 1 extra hot slot? Utility slot? Wow! That was a huge boon. I should arguably have taken that a lot earlier in the build, but there's quite a difference between having 3 because of this belt or 4 because of that 1 feat. This gives us extra options, and in combat, that's amazing. It also lets us swap stuff out, right? For half the AP costs. It's an amazing feat. I just took this willy-nilly because I couldn't think of anything better to take. I'm like, I guess we'll take this. Wow. That proved extremely useful. Skinner. This was okay. We probably could have done without Skinner. Yes, we probably would have lost a point of threshold and probably like 2 or 3%. But overall, we benefited from this once, or twice arguably, when I crafted my current armor. We took this rather late in Garrett's adventure, so, because we didn't have tailoring until Expedition came out, and we were level 26, so, I don't know, I don't regret taking it, but in retrospect, something else would have made more sense, I think. If you're playing your Garrett, you can probably I would imagine you can drop Skinner. Interloper is amazing. Increased movement speed while stealthed. Incredible. That is simply incredible. Just that alone. And retaining 15 movement points is also really, really nice. Weaponsmith. Again, we didn't start making weapons until later on, but I am really glad we did take Weaponsmith. We made a few daggers out of Super Seal as we leveled, and other daggers as well when I was able to. And this proved useful. Extra 5% crit chance. Can't really say that's a bad feat. I like that. Boyer. We could have skipped this, but I thought that this combined with critical power would be a very nice addition for Garrett. We were making crossbows anyway. I couldn't think of anything else really to take. We could have taken, though, like, cheap shots instead. Crippling Strike, or Exposed Weakness. Actually, Exposed Weakness would have been great to take that. In retrospect, yeah, maybe we should have done that instead of taking Boyer. But, we took it. I liked it. It wasn't that bad. We did craft a few crossbows once I took this feat. And so, we put it to good use, I think. Grenades are amazing in this game. Grenadier is an amazing feat if you're throwing grenades. I can't imagine you wanting to use grenades and not taking Grenadier. It is that amazing. Yep. I can't think of... You should always take Grenadier if you're throwing grenades. It's 2-turn cooldown, so it is 2 turns. And special grenades get lowered by 3? Wait, really? Wow. Wow, that is amazing. So you can... That's why our EMP grenades, instead of 5 turns, were only 2 turns. That is incredible. Definitely take Grenadier if you plan on throwing grenades at all. Cheap shots, this was very nice. That extra critical damage bonus, combined with critical power, allows us to do a good amount of damage. In retrospect, I should have taken critical power much earlier. But this is very nice. We saw how useful incapacitating targets are. And now, with the big change to Cutthroat, woo! That's amazing. Because you no longer need to be stealth to use Cutthroat. You just need to get behind an enemy, and it will work if they are incapacitated. Oh, that would be amazing. Not stunned, if I remember the patch notes. Just incapacitated. Is that right? Yes, yep. We need to either be hidden from your target through stealth, or the target needs to be incapacitated. Uncanny Dodge. Really like this skill. I knew we were going for 8 agility, and I took this early, I think, around like level 12 or maybe 14. And this is great. Like, holy crap, if I sometimes use it against crawlers, they missed all their attacks. That's fantastic. In the arena, this let us dodge quite a few of Carnifex's attacks, or any other melees as well. Critical power was great. I think we really benefit from this. I should have bumped this up earlier into the build, but I wasn't sure I wanted this. So, this is why I waited until the very, very end, level 30, to take it. But we did see some benefit from this, and it is a nice feat. We super benefited from elemental bolts. Holy crap, that was nice. I wasn't sure if I wanted this either, or concussive shots. But in the end, since Garrett used water arrows, fire arrows, air arrows, and moss arrows in the Thief series, this just made sense thematically to take. I knew that we would benefit from it because we used special bolts. In fact, we took Marksman, which I think I skipped. Where the heck is Marksman? Here it is. We'll get to Marksman in a bit. So yeah, so this was a fantastic take, I think, for Garrett. Marksman was also great. I think I took this early. I think I took this like at level 1, actually. Because I intended to use special bolts only at a certain point in the game. Early on, we used our actual crossbow, but having the special bolts be the same as our crossbow meant that once I was crafting arrows, I really wanted to use them all the time, and we stopped taking normal bolts. This is helpful for Garrett because it keeps his weight down as well. And finally, we grabbed 2 more points of dexterity through increased dex. I thought that was a very nice one to take. Improves our accuracy with crossbows, gives us more lockpick and pickpocketing, increases our trap skill, gives us more accuracy with our grenades as well. It's amazing for Garrett. For you, if you were to make your own Garrett, you could probably afford not to take Boyer and Skinner, I would say. There is something to be said about whether or not you really want Burglar as well. You could take Exposed Weakness, you could take Critical Strike, you could take Concussive Shot or Opportunist instead. There's all sorts of other things that would also have worked for Garrett if you wanted to make a more combat-focused Garrett than what I did. Finally, for specialization, because Marksman, it turned out, has such a wonderful specialization, I cannot imagine playing this hybrid without Marksman. That made up again for our low precision, allowing us to hit enemies a little bit easier, and I needed all of that I could take. Interloper, I really liked the increased movement again. That was an extra 7% movement, and we were able to retain 10 more movement points while stealthed. And finally, Cheap Shot's damage. Why not? This benefits from critical power, and it also affects all of our... Is that right? Increases critical damage bonus by 5% for each specialization point. Oh, I wonder if this only... I didn't think about that. I thought this would actually increase all of our critical damage bonus by 5%, but maybe that only applies when Cheap Shots hits the target. Oh, this says all critical damage of our melee attacks. So yeah, I think this is a flat 5% extra critical damage bonus. And I think each point in this would be more beneficial than points in critical power. For Garrett's equipment at the very end, I liked our serrated super steel knife. I liked the bleed. Sometimes we saw it bleeding the enemy for like 40 points of damage. That's amazing because we crit the enemy and it procced. Could have gotten away though with just using a normal super steel knife. Just pure flat damage would also have let us win a few battles that we did not win. In the end, I think we probably should have stuck with the normal belt, just the utility belt, and not taken the bolt quiver. I don't know, I thought it was thematic. I don't think I even mentioned why I just swapped this over to this. I thought it was more thematic for Garrett to have the bolt quiver, because he had a quiver in the Thief series. But I think a normal utility belt would have been better. There's our patent-infused Greater Cypher leather overcoat. Look at that. That is amazing. Immune to freezing. Look at that stealth, evasion, dodge bonus. That's incredible. Good numbers on those resistances as well. And no significant armor penalty to even consider. 8%? That's great. Technically, we didn't even need nimble, because we'd only have a 7% armor penalty with that. But wow, why not take it? Our 17% increased crit chance goggles, which I wore which I forgot to wear half the time during my Let's Play. Don't you forget to wear your goggles, everyone. If you decide to make a Garrett character who relies on his crossbow for critical hit, don't wear your protection goggles when you know where all the enemies are, which is what I did pretty often. A decent shield. This is not, I think, yeah, this is not the one I ended the game with. But we still made this one, and I really like conversion rate shields, because it lets them block more attacks, which I find to be the most important aspect of shields. Fantastic boots, simply amazing. Leather tabby boots, look at that. 37 increased movement points. Movement speed increased by 31%. Most of the other YouTubers that I've been watching play this game speed their game up as they walk from place to place. I always forget that's even an option. Because of how fast Garrett moves, I've never had a problem just walking around from place to place. Being able to do so stealth, like we move faster stealth than most people's characters move unstealth. That is incredible. And finally, our end game crossbow. Our other one wasn't too much worse off than this one though. Same precision, critical chance, and critical damage bonus if I recall correctly. Just 3 more. This one has 3 more minimum, I think 7 more maximum damage. So, great crossbow. We made a great use of it. We also had our shock super steel combat knife, which we put to excellent use down there in deep caverns for emergencies. And we have, I think I crafted these 90% detection increase goggles for when I really want to see the crawlers walking around. A little cut here, just to make sure that last part got saved off. And now I think I could talk about Underrail in general. I really like this game. Very much. You've heard me curse and swear at the RNG. I think the RNG in this game is going to wear down anyone. When you miss 85% chances in a row, that's going to get on your nerves. And when it happens multiple times, you will start to notice it more and more often, and you will begin to swear at the RNG. But you're only a reload away if it comes down to it to redo the combat and try again. And the RNG is not a fixed seed, so that maybe that next attack, instead of missing 5 of your 8 attacks, you'll actually hit 8 of your 8 attacks. So I can't complain too much about the RNG, other than to mention it is frustrating when it doesn't go your way, but that's every game that has RNG, so can't complain about that overly much. I think some aspects of Underrail could be explained better. I intend to make a series of videos of boot camp for people to explain what I have learned about Underrail and how some of the mechanics work, because I'm seeing lots of people, YouTubers, they're not to say that how to say this in the correctly. because some people do not understand how the game works, like why you lose a negative 1,000 initiative when you re-enter combat in a room you left, for example, or why that's a thing and that you should prepare for it, and how crowbars work, for example, or how crafting works and how important it is to make a crafting character if you fully want the best gear in the game. Seeing people carry around a ton of stuff they're never going to use, and not to consider using storage here and there throughout the game. So there's some aspects that could be explained better, I think, in the game. But that said, you'll pick it up because the game is going to punish you consistently if you do not until you learn the rules it hasn't adequately explained. All that said, though, I think I have 800 hours or so invested in this game, so there isn't too much that I don't at least understand the mechanics behind. I think the character creation process of Underrail is amazing. It speaks volumes to the game that we beat the game with a character like this, on normal mode of course, but normal mode is not easy. Not at all. A min-max character would also have beaten the game, right? It's quite possible. I think we won some battles that a min-max character would have failed, given our slightly increased constitution, or our ability to handle opponents both ranged and at melee, not requiring as much running around with our crossbows, for example, or not setting up 50 traps all in like a huge amount of lines or columns or rows or what have you to stop any melee enemy from reaching us. We didn't have to do anything like that. Yeah, I very much like the character creation process in this game. They give you, in normal at least, enough skill points, enough stats, and enough feats that you can also get what I would consider 2 quality of life feats under your belt for your character in normal mode. Probably can't do that in hard, I would imagine. And the difficulty levels of the game sound fantastic. You find normal too easy because you're using a psionic character, start on hard instead. Or finding the game too difficult, play on easy. It's a single-player game. No one's gonna judge you. Do what you want. Your game, your rules. Inventory management could be probably a little bit better. I find this awkward to use. I wish I could filter. Like, when I'm carrying a huge amount of stuff, and I just want to see, like, where are my modulators? I don't want to have to scan all these lines for them. I want to have a filter that says, show me shield. Like, I want to click on one of these, and for it to highlight the equivalent things over here that I can put into these slots. I realize that's asking a lot of work, so I'm not going to hold it against the developers of this game. It would be really nice, though, to have some way to declutter or make it easier for you to use this crafting menu. Because this is a bit... If you don't know, a shield is called a energy shield emitter. You'll go down and look for it in S, right, for shield emitter. And there's a few things over here that work that way. What else is there? The combat is amazing. I really enjoy the combat in this game, at least on normal. You are almost always outmanned. You're going to be fighting more enemies than you. Sometimes you're also outgunned, fighting a mini-boss like Baylor, or fighting any Deathstalkers early on, or what have you. But you come back later, after getting a few more levels under your belt, and you slaughter them. Or, clever use of what skills, abilities, items you have can make the difference significantly. You're using a character who has stealth and traps, use stealth and traps. Use your hot slots. Put things you like using on them. Etc., etc. You see enemies wearing armor, put HE grenades on your hot slot, on your hot bar. You see a bunch of non-armored lunatics running around, put instead a normal frag grenade down here. Robots, put down EMP grenades. The game gives you all the tools necessary to deal with the encounters that you come across. That all said, the boss battle is completely unbeatable with certain builds. You must make a combat-oriented character in Underrail, or you won't win the game. You can get up to probably Deep Caverns, but Deep Caverns will slaughter your character if you made a merchant, for example. I think probably early on, you will realize the type of characters that can and can't make it through the game. I know that my first close to like 60 hours, were throwing away character builds as I began to realize just how focused my characters needed to be. I still pushed the boundary because I still like using hybrids and I didn't like min-maxing, but I eventually found ways in which I could make that still work for the game. Yeah, Chort himself, you're not going to beat that with a character who relies on traps and caltrops, for example. You don't have a prayer. So you're going to have to make someone who can use guns or swords or something of the sort, some more consistent, non-purchased way to beat creatures. I really like Expedition as well. In fact, I thought Expedition was amazing. I loved the lore, I liked the area, I loved the jet skis, I liked the timer in there as well, and I thought it was fantastic. It's a great addition to Underrail. The only thing I would say I'm hesitant on, and that's to say that I can see people disliking it, are some of the various enemies. In this game, people complain about, or the base game, people complain about crawlers endlessly. I loved crawlers because of how different they are compared to most other things in this game, and most enemies I would fight in a game like this. Like Fallout, enemies just charged you. They picked an enemy, charged that enemy, shot and fought that enemy, that was it. Crawlers are intelligent. Like, they'll stab you, they'll go away. They'll wait till you're paralyzed, they'll come back, stab you again, and bite you a whole heck of a lot. Snipers and what have you, they run around corners. They ambush you, they use their skills. It's great, absolutely great. Psionic characters, they mix and match their, frost and fire, what have you. You have to see what enemies you're fighting, know which targets are a priority, and deal with them as quickly as you possibly can, assuming the RNG allows you to do so. Combat really is amazing. It's incredible. One of my favorite things about this game. And that's why I like playing through the game again with other characters, to see how different builds can do against all these battles that I've done before. There's a ton of replayability in that regard. Speaking of replayability, the game lets you join different factions. You won't see all of them on your first playthrough. And that includes both Free Drones and the Protectorate, the Oligarchy, whether or not you want to join Agents Incorporated, or the Pirates, apparently, or do your own thing over there in the Black Sea, which you're allowed to do. It lets you do all sorts of other, help different people in different ways as well. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of them. Like, we didn't finish up the Scrappers or Black Eels quests. We left them alone at the very end. But there was still more we could have done there if we so wished. There is a huge amount to explore. It took us 125 videos. Some of those were an hour and a half long. It took us 120 hours or so to beat this game. And it was like $30? Holy crap. That's... Even if you find some bits of this game frustrating, that is amazing. That's an amazing amount of content for a game like this. Incredible. Holy crap. I can't think of very many games that offer that much playability in them. If you want to see every inch of a game. Holy crap. Fantastic. I would say that a good amount of the exploring, though, good amount's the wrong terms. The exploring could be made a little better. Most of the caves, for example, had nothing that we needed in them. And I find this true about Oddity Mode in particular. I'll save my Oddity rant, most of it, for my boot camp video. But I think that Oddity should be locked for your first character, and should unlock itself, probably, I don't know when it should do it, for you in-game, but I think playing Oddity for your first character is a giant mistake. Oddity requires farming. It requires a more specific type of character build, so you can't really do Oddity very well if you're not playing a hacking, lockpicking, pickpocketing character. You can still do it, but it will take you a lot longer to find all those oddities, because now you're looking for very specific ones, as opposed to ones that can randomly show up. The grinding is unbelievable. Sometimes I've spent up to 3.5 hours in Foundry killing Bladelings because they won't drop their 2-point oddity. I've taken up to an hour killing cave hoppers that won't drop theirs. I have a character of mine, Joan d'Arc, who is playing the game on oddity mode. I guess we're doing the rant now. She has explored all of this for Underrail, a huge amount of the lower cavern, as the lower passages as well. She has killed every single side beetle she has ever seen and looted every single corpse. And I only have one side beetle brain. I've killed something like 70 side beetles, and they will not drop their brains. None of them will. It took me an hour, I think, and a half to get all of the siphoner. Where are they? Well, they're in here somewhere. All the siphoner things. I wonder, do I even have any beetle colossus? Yeah, here they are. Any no, I have no beetle colossus things either. I have to actually go and kill them when they respawn. Something I have never had to do on classic mode. Furthermore, Jeanette here is about ready to wrap up everything pre-Chortist here in Underrail. And she's only level 18. I'll be lucky to hit level 20 by the time I would be normally going to the Black Sea. Garrett was level 24 at the same point that Janine d'Arc is at. I really feel it is a mistake for people to play oddity mode with their first character. I don't dislike oddity mode. Let me also say that. I think oddity mode can be fun. I like it because it adds, in my opinion, it shifts the difficulty up one rank. Normal becomes hard. Hard becomes dominating, and dominating becomes a punch in the face. It is that difficult, I find, with oddity, especially if the RNG hates you and does not want to give you any oddity items. On that same note, when it comes to characters, psionic builds, I feel, are extremely strong. Holy crap! They are very, very powerful. And I feel that any psionic build shifts the difficulty down to an easier rank. Normal with psionics, I've had no problems with any of my characters that have even some psionics. Most of my characters have 2 types of psionics. I have one character who has 3. I would imagine a full psionicist will just annihilate anything they come across. Give them stealth, you'll see every aspect of the game that you care to see without any significant trouble, would be my guess. It is that easy. On that note, I do feel that there should be some balancing of the psionic characters somehow. They are too strong. They make the game way too simple, in my opinion. That said, however, hey, it is what it is. Play the character you like. I'm not gonna judge you based on playing a psionic character. Wizards and or psionics, they're fun. They're a lot of fun. And you can also specialize there. Maybe you want to make like a Gandalf. And you put all your points into metathermics and some thought control. Great! Awesome! Go and do it. Nothing's stopping you. What else is there we can talk about Underrail before I'm all wrapped up? There were some aspects of the game I did not even see, right? We failed to meet Azif. He was a member of a group that we weren't able to access because we did not solve Jack Quicksilver's quests in the most optimum way. On that note, I would have to look up what that way is to successfully solve it. We didn't join the... Well, we covered different things already. I guess one other negative I can think of is the deep caverns. I liked the deep caverns, all told. I can see why other people would hate it. It would be extremely difficult to play a non-stealther in there. You have to know it's coming up, and you better damn well be prepared for it, because if you end up down there not prepared, you ain't leaving. You can't get back to your house to resupply, because now you're in deep caverns and can't leave. Woo! I know, I can understand why they did it. That's a rude surprise. And that game, Deep Caverns feels a bit different from all the other aspects of Underrail. So that could be quite a sour note to a player to have invested 80-something hours into the game, reach Deep Caverns, and have to start over. Oh, I would not like that very much. No, not at all. Woo! But we did it at least, and with now that I know what's in Deep Caverns, I know what types of characters can survive down there. Alright, with all that talk done, everyone, I'm going to make one more quick cut. And I want to do a shout out to 2 other YouTubers who are currently playing through Underrail Expedition. There are many YouTubers beside me who are playing through Underrail Expedition at the moment, but I'm going to recommend these 2 in particular. One of them, his name is Bring It Don. He is playing through the game with a... how to describe it? He's a spear user, no psionics, riot armor with a shield. He uses a spear in one hand and a shield in the other. It's fun to watch him run around, and he's basically using like he's his own mini phalanx of sorts, like a Sparta warrior or something of the sort. It's really entertaining to see him play the game with that type of character. He also has not beaten the game, just like me, or he did not beat the. I have beaten the game now, obviously, but he has not. And so there's a bunch of stuff he's seeing for the first time. He's dying. He keeps most of his deaths on screen. I really like that aspect. And so I can recommend him. He's entertaining to watch. Or at least I find at least this video series of his entertaining. I have not watched any others. But I like him. And I can recommend his series. Also, another YouTuber that I occasionally watch videos from, his name is Apple Bread. Apple bread, like bread of apples, made of apples. And he has 2 streams of himself playing through Underrail, and he is playing a character that is using a sledgehammer, no psionics. And I don't know how far he'll get. I suspect the game will beat him in the end, but but I liked his playthrough as well. I like people who played the game who aren't using a psionic character. This is not because the people who play psionic characters are bad, but because I think it's more of a struggle, and I like watching a struggle, especially when they succeed at the challenges that are placed before them. So, again, their names are Bring It Don and Apple Bread. And everyone, that will do it for this playlist. Thank you guys very much for watching. I will have a video uploaded either this or next week where I have all the characters up for a vote that I would like to play through the game again with. And then, once they're voted on, sometime I think in January, maybe December, probably January, but maybe end of December, we will start another Let's Play with whoever wins that vote. I look forward to seeing you then, assuming that you will also look forward to seeing my video. Thank you all very much, and I will see you later. Take care, everyone.